we need to talk about Peel paragraphs. For all of you who were fast forwarding, this is the mandatory part where you need to pay attention. I have formatively graded assignment 8.5 and 8.6 this weekend. That took me about 20 hours. Please, therefore, reflect on my feedback and reply with a little thank you. Reflecting on what you wrote, I have a few recommendations for you. 1. Read over your material before you hand it in. Or in other words, don't waste my time. Many of you, myself included, are surprisingly not perfect and will sometimes make small mistakes. However, I also came across documents with a sea of red and blue squiggly lines under words. And although I'd love to be at the beach right now, which is perhaps where some of you were with your thoughts as well, this is simply your computer telling you that there are words misspelled. So, spelling errors don't miraculously go away. To not use spell check is like Donald Trump, who didn't listen to medical advice and thought the US was going to be miraculously unaffected by corona. 2. Follow the Peel format really well. We are going to use it like a baking recipe. We're following the steps and measuring carefully. We're not cooking today, it's baking time. That means your first sentence is where you make the point. Your second is where you give evidence. Your third is the explanation. Your fourth, the link, and that is it. No more sentences. There's a time and a place where you can write more, and we're gonna do longer peels, sure, but the time is not now. The challenge will be for you to craft razor-sharp arguments in just 4 sentences. This will test your skills using complex and compound sentences. If you need a refresher, check Unit 2 on Google Classroom. Also, if you need a refreshing, you can pause this video now and go for a drink because there's more mandatory lesson content to come. Number 3, repeat yourself less. Say things just once. Oh, but Mr. Mark, you just said the same thing twice in 2 different ways. Right, but that's using different words. What is boring if you use the same words? Here's an example. A good person is nice. Good people are nice to me and make me happy. Making someone happy is a nice thing to do. Therefore, being nice is what a good person does. This not only is repetitive, it also says nothing interesting and doesn't really use meaningful examples. It just kind of spins its gears. I want to read you a piece from Jordan's most recent paragraph. It's a bit longer, but it is an example of how you can write an argument in Peel format. Jordan asks the question who we perceive as being good. People who are in fancy clothes are usually more cared for by strangers than a person who is in normal clothing. Because to the stranger, that person looks more important. A study was made where a person who was in a suit fell down in a crowded plaza and people came to his rescue immediately. But the same happened to someone in casual clothing and no one came to help him. Because image is everything in this world. If you look important, more people are going to think you are important. To me, there is no such thing as a good person, since everyone has different thoughts, but most of these thoughts revolve around society and what the majority of people think a good person looks like. All right, that was the paragraph. He also wrote about the placebo effect and the philosophical train car dilemma. Great. In short, it was interesting. There was a really good example. When I read your Peel paragraphs, when I read them, I was reminded of why I enjoy teaching grade 7, really. Your views on what makes a good person were absolutely wonderful. Sometimes older people become grumpy and get set in their ways. In most of your writing, however, I sense a certain spark of hope and optimism. This is an important ingredient to have. It's important for a happy life, and I want to encourage you to keep that optimism. It was interesting to notice how many people spoke of a small ego and humility. When I was young, we didn't mention these things too much. Today, there seems to be a pretty big aversion to anyone who is excessively flexing, and I like that. It's a good reminder to stay humble.